Okay, my friends, if you're watching this, I'm 99% sure you know who this guy is, Randall Carlson. He's a vocal, he's got a good following, he's speaking, he's asking questions. I want to be part of that conversation. So I'm asking you to please comment and ask him to discuss this with me. Because when I show you what I have to present, it shows that literally the universe is biological. Let's get started. Okay, the reason I want to speak with Randall Carlson and Avi Loeb is Avi Loeb is making all these comments about this asteroid, or is it a comet, and they're talking about the tail. And he's talking about the tail is not seen, suggested that 3I does not shed a lot of dust. They're not shedding dust. Dust is not what they're shedding. They are shedding smoke. Literally, the gases are boiling off of biology, which is blood. All right, the reason I want to talk to these guys is because space smells like steak, which is burnt metals, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Exactly what happens when you cook a steak. That's what it smells like, and that's because it is being cooked. And this 3I is not just a piece of rock, I'm sure, because none of the other ones are. I'm going to show you Psyche and Bennu, they just came back with a sample of it, and I can absolutely 100% guarantee you I know what it is, and they do too. Okay, the reason I want to talk to them is because it's just so completely obvious that these body parts are floating in space, and they are gassing off when they get close enough to the sun to be cooked. It's not dust. This right here is a human heart. There's a line right across here. You see the red and the blue? That's called iron banding, and that pops this right apart because they're polar opposites, and it just cracks, and you get a bottom piece and you get a top piece. That goes off, I don't know where, but the bottom piece is extremely obvious, and that right there is a comet called Psyche. It's 140 miles from here to there. Now these are the valves in the heart, and so is that. These are tubes, actual tubes coming out. Those aren't impact craters, and these are valves, and these are the colors of the blood, and this is the tendon that holds the muscle that wraps around and around, that snaps and makes your heart pump. The black, the red, and the yellow, those are the blood colors. This is Psyche. That's what a heart is after the plumbing breaks off. This is before, but this is the gooey stuff that is able to flop around and do all this as your heart pumps, and then that just pops right off, and you end up with this, which is this. Now Bennu, they went up to, here's Bennu. Whoops, I don't have Bennu on here, but it's, well, let me get it. All right, Bennu's not as big. Bennu's less than a mile, but it is a heart, and that's one of the big valves. Here's another valve. There's another one down here. And they landed on here, grabbed a chunk of that stuff, brought it back to Earth, and it is heart muscle. And I can guarantee you, because that's it right there. This is the sample they came back with. This is the phosphate surprise, which means there's phosphorus there, which is made from membranes. So you got a membrane's phosphorus. You've got sarcomeres, which are the muscle, another layer of phosphorus, which is the membrane, another layer of sarcomeres, and it just goes on and on and on. And these are all the bundles right here. These are bundles of heart muscle. The whole thing is just nothing but a big wrapped up bundle of heart muscle. And this is what muscle looks like. This is what it is. The heart sarcomeres are exactly that. And it has all the same chemistry, exactly identical, including RNA, DNA, everything. It's 100%. That is a heart. And that sucker is huge. There's literally no question whatsoever. This is heart muscle, sarcomeres, and so are these. This is on a heart here on Earth from a heart attack victim. that is from Bennu, that they spent billions of dollars to go and get that and bring it back, and now it's been sitting around almost 2 years and they just can't handle it. I knew what it was long before they came back with it, and I put exactly what they're going to find in the chemistry, and that is exactly what they found, because all it is blood and muscle. That's all it is. And the stuff that Avi Loeb is talking about, Mao is a finger. I'm going to show you all this stuff, or I have shown it to you. But there's no question, zero question. How can they get away with not dealing with the reality? These are the people that teach us what we have to believe. You know, I don't want to be nasty, but this has been going on for almost 15 years now. And I have everything I did on my own stuff, the Mudfossil, all DNA tested and CAT scanned, and giant creatures, giant hair follicles like that right there. They're all over this earth. Everything is much different than we were told. Time to talk about it. And I need an audience. I can't get anybody to listen. Or, well, I guess a certain group, and they're interested, and that's it. And then the rest of them, they just come after me. They don't come even after me. They just hide. And that's Yale and Harvard and MIT, and they have all of them, 100% of them. The ones where we looked for answers, don't go looking there anymore. Okay, we've been tracking this asteroid too. And this is space, and you can tell where everything is, and it actually moves with you, and there's Neptune moving through the galaxy here, or wherever it's moving. Now, we have new techniques, and Mason, a friend of mine, has developed a new technique for taking shots of space and these things. That is Jupiter. And these are the dipoles, and this is, I don't know what he's got going there. I got to be perfectly honest with you. I'm starting to learn, but he's got some serious action going on. This is the Stellarium star map. This is the kind of stuff they do at NASA, Saturn, Titan, and these two little galaxy groups. This is his shot. This is Mason. Look at this. Right there is Saturn. Over there is Titan. Up here is this one. Down here is that one. And he's seeing all of these Zeeman effects. This gets a little bit pretty deep, actually. It doesn't get any deeper. But look at this. These are the kind of things he can see. They've been looking for these for years. But I don't think they understand what he does. And I've been working with him, and the stuff he's showing is it's absolutely stunning. Look at this. This is some kind of dipole between Saturn and whatever's going on there. But everything's a dipole. There's black and white on everything. Some of it is extremely obvious, and some of it is a little more subtle. But anyway, let's go through this. Okay, my friends, this goes back to about 2014, 2015, right in that area. This is called Comet 67P. All right, now, this is what it looks like, and they were going to land, and well, they did land, what they called a Philae lander on, and they sampled it, they did chemistry, and I mean, they were right on there. And I'm going to show you what they found when they got there. Now look at the shape of this. What the hell is that? Explain that to me. I know what it is, and you will in a minute too. And there is no denying. There's absolutely no way to deny what I'm going to show you. All right, here. So now we got a 67P, and we got a hip joint from a human person. You know, they're the bone coming up your leg, and it fits in this ball in that socket, and you can walk and do all those things. They break here sometimes, and sometimes they break right there. That's a hip socket. Let me show you where the arteries and the blood vessels are. Now, all I can tell you is that there was things that were giant, and things that are less giant, things that were small. That's just what it is. And they are in space, they are on Earth. The things I have here are primarily from Earth, although I do have meteorites here that are biological, and I'll show you this in a minute. Now, I showed you this. This is a hip joint. It's a hip joint. And what would have to be on that hip joint to make that function? You have to have blood. You have to have little blood vessels to service all the muscles. Can we find that? Well, I think we can. And here it is right here, cooking off. You see that huge one coming out of there? This goes back to January 2015. And this is February 2015. They're taking pictures of this as they're orbiting it, and then finally they landed on it. Now, these little ones here, those are not huge arteries like this, and that's a monster. These are little ones that feed the little muscles, because there's going to be muscles all going over there to pull that leg up and down and all around like that. And they have to do this, and they need a hell of a lot of blood. It takes a lot of blood to run a body. Now, this one here, look at the size of this puppy. Now, I followed this as close as they followed this. I have friends, the European Space Agency, NASA, and so forth, that at that point, I could communicate with and discuss these kind of things. Not in a deep, giving me any information nobody else had, just that I could ask questions. That's all I want to do is ask questions. And then I wanted somebody to ask questions back when I presented evidence. That never happened. Never happened. Now, I can easily account for the pattern of the blood. The little tendon fibers, they slide on each other like this, and there has to be some goop in between them. Now, it could be blood, or it could just be lymph fluids, because they have to slide. There's going to be some fluids in these sections. Wherever you have muscle, you got a ton of blood. It's just the way it works. There's no other way to it. And here's what we got is, this is the hip joint, and it broke down here, which is different than normal. Well, I can't say that, but they show these differences. They can break anywhere they want. And what did we end up with? We end up with one of them which was going to service that muscle, a ton of blood coming out of there, which is, in the chemistry, it is blood. And the same thing here. And see them shooting off these different directions? That's where the tendons would have gone into. Remember as they flare out, those tendons? That's where they go to. Now, let's look inside this artery. You want to see an artery? Yikes. Where's the artery? Look at this. Oh, look at the size of this thing. This is 40 meters. This is about 500 feet across, this artery. One artery, 500 feet. And these little balls here, they call them dragon balls. I think they know what they're talking about, because every mission they've ever done has the name of a god. I got a feeling we're being played, my friends, but that's what I'd like to talk to Carlson about. I mean, Randall Carlson, thank you, my friend. I respect you. I'd love to talk to you about, because there's so few people that have the kind of information you have and the kind of background and knowledge and the ability to show this information. Now, I'm going to talk about something else right now, which I noticed on his comments. Somebody says, oh, you can't see your Mao, nobody can see any of this stuff. Well, that's not true. You know, before I go any further, there's so few people have any solid material evidence other than pictures way out in space showing this and that, and you can't really tell exactly what it is. Well, I can tell you exactly what this is. This is exactly a hair follicle, and it's 2 inches wide. Now, is it human? I don't know, but it's a 2-inch hair follicle. That's pretty damn big. That's the pili erector muscle that lets your hair go up and down like that. This is the shaft that comes down. Here's the hair shaft that comes up through the skin out into the Never land. This is the sebaceous gland. And these two little dots here are the hair papilla down at the bottom. There's no question whatsoever. It's 100% certainty. All the stuff I have, my stuff is DNA tested, gigantic stuff. Absolutely enormous. 3-foot long fingertip. 3 feet long. Smashed into it, got way down inside and got the blood out of it, sent it off, and it is human. You know, they were talking about you can't tell what Mao is. It's just an artist's rendition. No, that's not true. This is what's called 2D. They take a picture, thousands of pictures, and they put it together and they laminate it. And you can see the grip skin out here on that fingertip. You can see the apical tuft. You can see the tendon coming down with the investment at the crease here, where the tendons lock in. coming down here. You can see this is right here. This goes right over the top of your finger. That's the vein. That's the artery over there. These are two tendons. This is a fingertip. I've shown this to one of the top anatomists in the world. He says that is a fingertip. It's a full finger. And that's what he does all the time, is autopsies. Now, I know about CAT scans. I know about 2D and 3D. This is the 3D. And you can just barely see the bone. In mud fossils, bones don't stay white and calcium and so forth. They convert into mud stone. That's a mud stone bone. I think it's like in a wrist or something. I'm not sure exactly. It doesn't matter. It's a bone from the Great Flood. And they convert. The only last piece that didn't convert, and it's almost the only one I have that has any bone at all, is that little spot right there. I don't even know if you can see it, but it's so small. You can see it in a microscope. I have a microscope. I check all that stuff. But anyway, this is what you consider to be a CAT scan, where it goes down through and you can see inside and so forth. Well, these don't work so well in mud fossils. These are the kind that work. Where'd it go? Here, like this. You see this? This is looking to the back of the fingertip. That's the bone right there. That's a tendon. That's a tendon. You see them both? That's where the vein was, the black blood. And that's where the artery was. When that blood runs out, but this is exactly what a right-hand thumb is. This side is flat. You see here? Running right up against the bone. Right there, there's a bone. This one has a lump on the side, a big pad lump. This is a right-hand thumb. And these are the tendons right here. And I had a lot of stuff CAT scanned. Jesse Grant and Associates did it fabulous, the best people you ever work with in the world. Jesse Grant and Associates. And I thank Jesse and Fabio and all those guys. Absolutely fabulous. And this was 15 years ago. No, not that long. I think either 10 or 12 years ago, somewhere around there. And they did all these CAT scans for me. Did 7 CAT scans, both 2D and 3D, and I could prove my stuff. It's not deniable, and it can be retested. And I got DNA out of that DNA test done too. 3 of them done. 2 of them were giants, and I mean big giants. It's the only reason this is not being taken serious is because it damages academia's standing. This is the heel stone, which is a foot at Stonehenge. It was laying flat on the side when it died. They all have like a really very flat side almost, because they all died laying flat, and then they got soaked, and the nucleophilic invasion came in, turned it all to stone. These 2 little dots at the end are the digital terminus, which means that's where the blood ends up going from the artery side coming down to the vein side coming back. And they're on each one of the toes. That's a foot. A 5-year-old couldn't tell you that's a foot. And then the rest of it, if your eyes can see big enough, you see that there's a fingernail. That's a fingernail. And the moss grows where there's vital flesh. Moss does not grow on fingernails all that well. And you can see down here, look. You see those colors? Those are colors of blood. I think this is the other side, the inside of a finger. I'm not sure. But these flat, even the thing on the top here, there's a plate like that between each one of your fingers so that they can rock and don't get scrubbed up. All this is, it's all biology. And not a single expert has ever even asked me a question after I sent them all this stuff. And Avi Loeb, same thing too with Omao. This is absolute 100% certainty that is a finger. And I tried to contact Avi a dozen times. Nobody will speak to a Roger. All of this stuff. I explain all this stuff. I can explain every bit of this. And I would like to have somebody respond. Now, I'm just hoping that Randall Carlson will be willing to do that, because like I say, I can scream all I want. I have been doing that for 15 years, and nobody will scream back. So, Mr. Carlson, I would certainly appreciate your attention on this matter, my friend. And to all my good friends, I love you all. By the way, this is Raleigh, North Carolina. This is 67p. And again, that's 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago they did all this. Okay, once again, I work outside of mainstream. I use the mainstream stuff too, yes. And I assess it for what it is. And it's not what they say it is 99% of the time. This was done by a friend of mine, Mason. That is Saturn. You see the dipole nature? You see these layering of all that stuff? You don't see that from NASA. They just are starting to learn how to do this. This is a Newtonian telescope stripped of all filters and then using, this is not CGI. This is not an artist's record. This is exact energy levels hitting CMOS pixels. They're just starting to learn how to do this. We've been doing this for years now. All right, this started back long ago, over 10 years ago. We picked up these pictures, Rod Warren and I. Rod actually started this by trying to do a double slit experiment, and what he ended up doing was accelerating the light and splitting the particles, the black from the white. These are black and white particles, they're together as a photon, but when he put it through the Venturi, the black cannot get bigger or smaller. So it's just like a bowling ball. That's it, never going to change, and it has weight. The white has no weight whatsoever, get big and small. And you can see it right here in the, well, here it is. There's a white bigger and smaller. These are dipoles back to back, and they make up the smallest particles that exist, which this is Fermilab's picture. I said, I found your particles. They refused to engage, and they still do this over 10 years now. And however, they have gone to using exactly what we use now. Anyway, it's very frustrating. We could see this over 10 years ago. Those are photons. And it just went on from there. But we can also see this in space. You see that? That's a dipole. I believe that's Venus, but I'm not certain. That's our moon, and you got some crazy things, but everything was a dipole. Now, this goes back to 2020, somewhere around there, 2021, and this was Dylan over in New Zealand, Dylan Carpenter, who was Rod's nephew, Rod Warren, and Rod did these. And Dylan sent me this other picture when he got a new cell phone. I have all the same stuff here. I did the same stuff Rod did, but not as, he was really into it. And he did this for years and years. Nobody ever paid any attention. This is the best you get from Fermilab and CERN, is a bunch of little garbage, because they hit these huge things. They think they got one ball like this. No, every ball is like this, with about 2,000, close to 2,000 particles. When they hit them together, they just get a bunch of trash. When we hit ours together, we started down here. That's all we ever shot, was two of those together at the same time. And all they ever did was break it apart. We didn't have to have all this trash to dig through, and that's all they've been doing for years and years and years, and refusing to do their job. They can see the particles that we show, but they just have no idea about it, because it's just in a ball of mess. They call these the particle zoo. You see that? That's from Mason. You see all these little bright red spots? This is right in our region. They had no idea any of this stuff exists. It's supposed to be a vacuum. It's a vacuum. They say that they can send light through here. It never slows down. They're insane. And they know it. I know they know it. Not a single person in their right mind could believe that a particle would be unrestricted through that space and never slow down. That's why they say the galaxy is stretching out, because it's pulling the light with it, because you can't slow the light down. That's just ridiculous. It's time to change this whole thing. And I need somebody that has some influence like Mr. Carlson. You see that? I might have shown you this already, but this was from Dylan. That's our moon. What's the blue like that for? What are all these lines? What the hell is this? You see that? When I saw that, I freaked. I said, it looks like Atlantis. They're going back and forth to Atlantis from the pyramids, sending ships back and forth. Nobody can say that's not true. I have no idea. But until you look at something, you have no idea. And they refuse to look. And this has been ongoing since my earliest days. I had dipole electron flood theory right after I got out of the Army. I serviced nuclear missile sites, and I took a great interest. And I got deep as anybody. I was deeper than anybody at that time, and I never was less deep. So it's time to discuss it with me. If I'm wrong, well, make a fool out of me. I don't mind. But until you can make a fool out of me, you are the fool. You tell me to go into your you know what they did? Let me show you something about physics. I'll just leave it at this. Hold on a second. All right. This was when I first hooked up with Rod Warren, and he was doing the double slit experiment. And this is the wave particle duality. And just here it is. And this is getting brighter in front as the light. This is actually light, and you have to use CMOS. This is what I had to fight with Fermilab and CERN and University of Geneva, and they converted to CMOS. CMOS is the standard now. It's the top standard. You have to have CMOS. And we're using CMOS in a Newtonian telescope, my friend Mason, who I'm supposed to be working with right this minute. Now, this I wrote back in 1970. Transfer of energy is from light into atomic vapor. And then it works with whatever it hits. And there's only two types. There's dipole-dipole interactions. These are intermolecular forces. Dipole-dipole interactions. There's polar and non-polar. And so this was my claims. I mean, I'm talking forever. I got stuff looks like the Dead Sea Scrolls. And when I went through this, I didn't just go through atomic physics or any of that stuff. I went through all the heat and the light and, I mean, just everything that you could do. Chemistry. I could go on and on. This is, like I say, this goes back. And I did all the things just the way they wanted to do it. Figured all the calculations. Nobody could stand ahead of me. And nobody did. Valence bond theory. I had all of this stuff done so long ago. And I could never get anybody to talk to me. And it's still the same thing today. So now you say, oh, well, Roger, you could have gone to Yale and learned all about that. Well, guess what? I did go to Yale. And here's what this first course, this is Professor Shankar. I took all courses everywhere. I went to the University of Geneva. I interacted with them. I showed them all their stuff. And at first they argued. By the time I was done, no more arguing. And the next thing, they shut down CERN for 3 years almost to put in CMOS, which is what I told them. I said, you have to use CMOS. You're destroying everything you're doing. They called it the observer effect. They either had to put energy in or take energy out. It's like charge coupling. You just destroyed what you did. This CMOS, we sit way back here and we wait. And it comes like machine gun bullets. And my guy Mason, he's as far as I can tell, there's nobody ahead of him. He is stacked layering these using a Newtonian telescope, stripped of any filters. And the result is just phenomenal. Now, this is Professor Shankar, and he's addressing the students that are coming in that have probably paid a ton of money. Now, here's what he has to say. Now, there's a guy called Feynman, and he had all these little stick diagrams showing energy levels and how molecules hook together. That's him, Feynman. Now, listen to this.
We're going to start quantum mechanics, and that's all we'll do till the end of the term. Now, I got bad news and good news. The bad news is that it's a subject that's kind of hard to follow intuitively. And the good news is that nobody can follow it intuitively. Richard Feynman, one of the big figures in physics, used to say no one understands quantum mechanics. So in some sense the pressure is off for you guys because I don't get it and you don't get it and Feynman doesn't get it. The point is, here's my goal. Right now, I'm the only one who doesn't understand quantum mechanics. In about 7 days, all of you will be unable to understand quantum mechanics. Then you can go back and spread your ignorance everywhere else.
Well, I didn't make those words up. You know, the crazy thing is, geology stuff was just worse. They just absolutely refused to do their job. Derek Briggs and the rest of his crew, Lydia Tarhan. I presented evidence. I presented DNA and CAT scans, and I wanted to come down and show them the stuff. They refused, absolutely refused. And that went on since about 2012. Still going on today. That is what we're up against, is a refusal to do their jobs. Anybody want to confront me about that? Come on down. Now, I'm asking for Mr. Carlson to put a little help into this. We need to get this out of the way. We got to sweep this nonsense away. Just say what I tell you to say, and I'll give you something to make you go get a job. No. You should be able to ask questions. That does not happen. In this time I've done this, in 12 years, I have 0 questions asked. And exactly what I presented in my paper called Fascia Facilitated Fossilization, which is why this goose turned into a stone. Feathers and everything. I presented all that to Yale, to Derek Briggs, and he made a paper about it after about a year or two later, and NASA paid him for all that. Because NASA is nothing more than biology too. It's up on Mars. I show this stuff over and over and over. And I just showed you 67 Ps, some body part in space. They talked about battles in the heavens and giants, and Enoch talking about 2.5 mile tall giants, and I mean, all that stuff. You talk about that in school, you will be destroyed. Your life will be ruined. They'll keep your money, and they'll make you into the fool on the block. I'm saying it's time to end this nonsense. Now, I got to get together with Mason. He's got some new stuff he's talking about. And the stuff he has is just, chilling. Never a dull moment. I'm just getting ready to send this off. Three-Eye Atlas, is it really alien? That's Avi Loeb. He's the one that was talking about Umau being a spaceship. It's not, it's a finger. I don't know, maybe they're living inside of it. We're living on dead creatures here too. These caves and tunnels and so forth, these are mostly body cavities from creatures that were here, gigantic creatures, just the way it is. And if you can prove me wrong, prove me wrong. Now, Avi Loeb won't respond. I have a cell phone and everything. I called over and over, never a response from any of them. Not had one response ever. The only things I've ever had was, you're an idiot or something like that. That's a fairly normal response. But the rest, forget about it. This just came out 4 hours ago.